The first thing you want to do when you see a graph on an AP calculus test is make sure you know what that is the graph of, because it is not always the graph of the same thing. What we're looking at up above here, they're telling us, is the graph of the derivative. So this is the graph of f prime of x. And then what they're asking us on this problem is they want us to, based upon that graph, determine where we would find the absolute minimum of that original function f. When you're doing one of these problems and you're trying to find the absolute max or the absolute minimum, what you're looking for in this situation is for the absolute minimum, you want the most amount of decreasing that you could possibly have, right? Because if you get the most amount of decreasing, that's the most amount that your graph can possibly go down. If we were talking about the absolute maximum, you'd want the opposite of that. You would want the most amount of increasing. So when we come to look at this derivative graph, we have to know how to read off that graph. Well, remember that when you're reading off a derivative graph, wherever the graph is up above the x-axis, this is telling us where the original graph was increasing. Wherever the graph is down in the negative here, that is telling us where the original graph is decreasing. So on this problem, we're looking for where we would have the most amount of negative happening for us. So on this graph, you can see that we would have negative. The most amount of negative would be all of that space right there, and it would be crossing at this point right here, which would be an x value of 3. So the absolute minimum has to happen there because this is all decreasing. Remember, don't read this like a normal graph. We're reading off derivative information. And so all that space, all of that portion of the graph up until it hits 3 right there, that is telling us that our original graph was decreasing through that whole space. So that's the most amount of decreasing, which tells us that we would be looking at the absolute minimum at that x value of 3. Thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, please click that like button and subscribe. And also share it with your friends and anyone else you know who might be crying about an upcoming AP Calc test. You can find more videos from me, more sample AP Calc questions, and my complete AP Calc study guide over at my website, apcalcprep.com. Have a great one.